Welcome back to another edition of Through the Smoke, a Miami Hurricanes football and recruiting podcast here on the 24/7 Sports Network. David Lake, joined as always by Gabby Urrutia. We're here to recap a big official visit weekend at Miami, weekend number 2 of this month of June in terms of official visits. 17 players, I believe, visited Coral Gables this weekend, and so there's plenty to get into here. Want to highlight, course, a couple of our sponsors. Canes Connection, that's Miami's collective, play a vital role in these talent acquisition efforts. So go to canesconnection.com, support those guys as always. Also, Nick Musarino of the Musarino Law Group. If you've been injured in a car accident, call 561-960-9870 or visit the Musarino Law Group, and he will help you fulfill all your needs that you could possibly have in those regards. Also want to highlight, we got a annual subscription sale at Inside the U wrapping up soon. So I believe it ends Monday night at midnight. So if you want to go all in on this recruiting coverage, 60% off for an annual sub that runs you about $43. It's a pretty good deal for 12 months of coverage and message board fun and yeah, supporting us too. All right, Gabby, let's dive into it. Let's start with the commits, right? Miami hosted what I believe 6 commits, was it?
Right.
Jackson Cantwell, Jalen Waters, Jordan Campbell, Darian Coleman, John Tavius Wyman, and Joel Irvin. You made it clear going in our preview pod that you were keeping an eye on Jordan Campbell. Just what were the vibes coming out of his official visit? Because other schools were definitely kind of circling those waters. What were the vibes with Jordan Campbell coming out?
Yeah, I mean, what Jordan Campbell told me after his official visit was that he was shutting down the rest of his official visits. So he had an Auburn trip, he had a Missouri trip, and he had a Nebraska trip on his calendar for the rest of the summer. And he said that he's not taking those anymore. He's fully locked in with Miami. Kind of saw everything he needed to see. Kind of got that affirmation that he kind of needed this weekend, just being around the guys, being around other commitments. He said he kind of looked around and he kind of just felt like these were the guys that he wanted to go to war with at the college level. So I think it was a good, productive weekend for Miami in terms of kind of solidifying things with Jordan Campbell. And I don't know, caution alert, I guess. But I've heard similar stuff from Jordan Campbell in the past. I'm kind of in wait and see mode to see where all of this goes. But that's what Jordan Campbell is saying coming out of this official visit weekend. And this is someone Miami is they want to keep in this class. Miami does not want Jordan Campbell out of this class. Corey Heatherman, the new linebacker defensive staff values him and his skill set and what he can do and what he brings to the table. So this is good news this summer for Miami fans. And I feel like I've said it the whole way. At the end of the day, I feel like I expect Jordan Campbell to sign with Miami. But this is one that we've seen the roller coaster ride already of kind of the ups and the downs of it. So, maybe take all that with a grain of salt. But maybe this summer, maybe we'll get through the rest of the summer without Jordan Campbell taking any more official visits, which is a win for the program.
Anything else noteworthy to pass along from the group of commits that visited?
I mean, just getting Jackson Cantwell down, I think was big. Chatting with him this morning, kind of just got the sense from him that he felt, he came in already knowing that he felt great about his decision to pick Miami, but walking out, I think it was a good time for him. Kind of got that monkey off of his back as far as just like being on these visits to make a decision, and rather he was just on a visit, enjoying his time, at the place where he's going to spend his college years. So that was definitely big. When I talked to him, he said he didn't put the recruiting cap on too much. But talking to some of the other targets that were here in Coral Gables with him, it sounds like Jackson Cantwell did plenty of recruiting for the
Good.
Hurricanes. I think he was trying to be modest and humble about it, but he was definitely going to war for the program and trying to get some guys on board. So I think that was a notable win for Miami. The rest of the group, I think is pretty solid. Darian Coleman, the quarterback knit, no worries there. Jalen Waters all in with Miami. John Tavius Wyman's another guy that Miami has in the class right now, and Joel Irvin is another one. He said Florida keeps calling him. He's being respectful, but he's all locked in with the Canes. So I think with that commitment group, not too much to worry about right now.
All right, so let's roll through the other official visitors that visited Coral Gables this weekend. Let's start with 5-star, according to 24/7 Sports. Defensive lineman Bryce Wright, number 32 overall player. He's the 6'2", 250-pounder from Buford High School in the state of Georgia. Auburn, Clemson, Texas A&M also involved. What are the vibes here after his visit to Miami?
He's down to a Final Four, David. He's got Texas A&M and Texas. Those visits still have to take, and then it's Clemson and Miami that he's also considering. I mean, feedback I'm getting coming off of this official visit is that Miami feels pretty good about where it stands amongst that top four. This is a guy who has kind of ties to South Florida. Mentioned it on the preview pod. He's related in some capacity to Ray Lewis. He's been down to Miami before in the fall. He returns in the spring for his family. Miami's been kind of surging. I think he really likes the way that Miami plans to use him on defense. We, talked to him about some of the people that Miami was showing him as far as just the tape, and he said he was watching a lot of number 4 and a lot of number 3. I mentioned Ruben Bain on the preview pod. You mentioned Akeem Messidor. I think Miami's showing him. I think he can be that kind of versatile blend of a guy who can play on the outside, but could also kick to the inside and be an interior pass rusher, or just an athletic interior lineman with some juice. So I think both of those roles are some of the things that Miami was selling to him. I think he likes to hear those types of things. So I think Miami's in the ball game for Bryce Wright with a decision coming on July 4th.
Do you feel like Clemson's the top competition, or you got to see how Texas and Texas A&M plays out?
Yeah, I mean, I think just checking around. I mean, Clemson is still kind of viewed as sort of the program to beat, but I do think everyone kind of gets to that point where it's just like, but he didn't commit, and that's Clemson's only big official visit weekend. That's typically when they get guys locked in. Maybe, I think everyone's feeling this where this is a kind of different era. I think there's still a possibility he circles back to Clemson. I'm certainly not ruling that out, but I think that it's notable that he's continuing on with this process if Clemson is kind of the perceived leader. And again, I think Miami took advantage of that opportunity, and it seems like they've positioned themselves in a place where, hey, you know what, you never know. And it seems like he is a priority for the program. So I think he's someone that Miami's willing to kind of do what it takes to get.
Let's stay on the D line. Let's go local with James Johnson, top 100 player according to 24/7 Sports. He's now at Miami Northwestern High School, originally from North Fort Myers. Visited Georgia, will visit Florida. Big time local line of scrimmage player, a guy Miami has to land this cycle. How did things go this weekend?
Really well. Again, feedback is very, very strong here as far as just where Miami feels like they're positioned going into the rest of these official visits. James Johnson was talking about kind of releasing a final 3 after he takes his official visits. He's already seen Georgia, saw Miami this weekend, still has Florida State, and Syracuse. He's thinking about or maybe trying to find a way to squeeze in Texas, but that's not kind of locked in yet. So we'll see if Texas kind of makes a late run at James Johnson. But I feel good about Miami kind of making that final 3 whenever he does drop it. And again, I think coming out of the weekend, there's some confidence in Coral Gables that they put themselves in a place where they can potentially land this kid. Like you said, David, this is now a true local guy being at Miami Northwestern that the program is just not willing to let leave. And I think again they're going to do a lot and make it really difficult for James Johnson to leave after the official visits were kind of over on Sunday morning. James Johnson was back on campus, with some of his family. It seems like they were maybe touring the school again, getting another look at certain things. So I think that's always a good sign when they kind of just dive a little bit deeper, even after the weekend festivities. So I thought that was pretty notable.
Tight end, Hezi Kent, jumbo tight end, jumbo athlete, 6'5", around 300 pounds, number 167 overall player in the country from Brunswick High School in South Georgia there. He's already visited Florida, who you said is viewed as the top competition for Miami.
Yeah.
Plans to visit Georgia Tech, Texas, FSU. Where do things stand coming out of the visit? What's the feeling like now coming out of this visit between the Miami and Florida visits?
Yeah, I think the hope was that there would be some clarity come after these 2 visits because I think, regardless of which direction you kind of poke around in with Hezi Kent, a lot of the feedback kind of points to Florida and Miami kind of duking this thing out. But it does sound like Hezi Kent is going to kind of continue with this process. And I think Texas, who's a school I think we've always viewed as sort of like the dark horse in this one, is one that people are maybe being a little bit more weary of, just seeing what happens after that Texas visit. Does Texas make a really big move and kind of really emerge as a true contender, more so than just a dark horse? So it seems like Hezi Kent is going to follow through with some of these remaining visits. Got to kind of see what happens. I think Miami's tight end board is in good shape regardless, but this is one that I think everyone, Florida and Miami both, are going to kind of continue to have to hold their breath and see what the result of this thing is at the end of the summer.
Braden Robinson, 4-star slot receiver, 90 grade, out of Red Oak High School in Texas. Listed at 5'8", might be a little shorter than that, but highly productive, very explosive. 1,400 receiving yards last year as a junior, 15 touchdowns. Perfect fit for what Miami does now with this air raid approach on offense out of the slot. What's the vibes here with Braden Robinson coming out of the visit?
Yeah, I think Notre Dame is still viewed as kind of like the leader in the clubhouse here. That's kind of the read that I'm getting coming out of this visit. I think Miami likes him. He's a really good player. Again, he's a very good fit for what they do on offense. I feel like Notre Dame kind of, I think they kind of just got out to a
Yeah.
significant lead. I think that that's kind of where have always been trending. I'm not sure if Miami did anything to sort of derail him off that plan. So we'll see what happens. Got some Arizona buzz too, as far as just being like maybe like the big fish in a smaller pond of just being that top, that top, playmaking recruit to go to a program where you can maybe be a plug and play type of guy. But I think Notre Dame is kind of the school that's buzzing the most right now. So I think the Irish have a good shot here.
How about 4-star DB Devin Jackson out of First Academy in Orlando, 90 grade, 6'2", 200-pound safety, the type of safety Miami's got to start stacking class after class after class. You watch his tape, he does it all. He can cover, he can tackle, and he has good instincts. So definitely a guy I'm interested in now after watching his tape more last week. What were the vibes coming out of the visit?
Really good. Devin Jackson was pretty, really really high on Miami. Will Harris is a guy he has a long-standing relationship with, and I think that this weekend definitely moved the needle. I think, just a lot of these guys, they'll come on campus for the unofficials and they'll watch practice and all those things, but I think it's a different experience when you're able to kind of, get around the program for a full weekend and just kind of really see what it is that the school has and kind of get that more in-depth look. I think that benefited Miami with Devin Jackson, and he said that this is a place that he can see himself at, and Miami would absolutely love to have him. So, got to battle some big time programs. LSU's in the mix, Oregon's in the mix. He said that he scheduled a midweek visit to Penn State. So, Penn State's a school in the mix. These are all schools that do a really, really good job with defensive backs, safeties in particular. And, Nebraska's also in there too. But I think the competition's getting stiff, and this is a guy that was committed to Florida for 9 months. So I think he is kind of just taking his time at this point. He doesn't want to rush into another decision. I think he wants his next decision, or he just wants to kind of go through his process now, truly, and see what kind of comes out on the other end of it. So I think this is one that might have a little bit more runway as far as just, maybe more runway than Miami would have hoped. Just to be able to, I think someone they really wanted to kind of get on board and get him in the class, but I think this might be a slower burn, and someone that Miami could still definitely add down the line and would love to, but I think they're going to have to sweat out some of these official visits.
3-star athlete Tyreek Green, 89 grade, out of Buford High School in Georgia as well. He's an athlete because he plays running back and
Yeah,
safety in high school, but you project him to college, he's a DB.
yeah,
What are the vibes here? Because he's kind of your classic SEC footprint,
yeah.
3-star, 4-star bubble DB. Typically, those guys go SEC. What type of impression did Miami make?
Yeah, a really good one. Just talking to Tyreek Green, talking to some familiar with Tyreek Green. I think Miami is a school that is in a realistic position to potentially land him. I think Georgia, being an Atlanta area kid, is always going to kind of be there. They're kind of loading up on DBs. I think Tyreek Green loves the vision that Miami has for him. They think he can play both safety spots. They think he can kind of come down and play the nickel. They think that he gives them some return value on both punts and kickoffs. So they think that he can do a lot of different things for the Hurricanes, and he's definitely liking that. And feedback I'm getting from Tyreek Green is that Miami is extremely well positioned. I think right at the top of his leaderboard along with Georgia. So depending on where things go, I think at the end of the day, if Georgia wants this kid, I think that's going to be a tough pull. But I think if it's not Georgia, I think Miami has a really, really good shot.
Three-star Brett Koleje, the big offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman from IMG Academy, originally from Colorado, 89 grade. Probably both you and one of our favorite three-star targets for
Yeah.
Miami this cycle. He's already visited Ohio State, gonna visit Georgia, Tennessee. So stiff competition here, but Miami wants to win at the line of scrimmage, and that's why they're in the race with a Brett Koleje type. What type of move did Miami make this weekend?
A huge move. I think Miami is. I think Miami's right there. I think Miami could realistically be the place where Brett Koleje plays his college football. His parents, absolutely love the visit. Breck absolutely love the visit. Miami is all in on this kid. They've been all in on him from the beginning. When Alex Mirabal went to Colorado to offer him, and I think they're just right there at the finish line. Georgia is a visit he's going to take next weekend. I think it's ultimately down to Miami and the Bulldogs. Again, I think that there are people around him that are supportive of him picking Miami. I think the Georgia's kind of always been maybe that school at the forefront of his mind naturally. But I think that there's a lot of promise with, what Miami's selling on him and, the development that can go on here. And I think after this Georgia visit next weekend, I think Greg Kolage could very realistically be in decision-making mode. And again, I would not at all be surprised if Miami was selection. Georgia can make kind of like that late push and maybe regain some of that momentum. But if we're reading momentum at the moment, I think momentum siding with Miami there would be a huge get for the Hurricanes. Again, they got to sweat this one out, maybe just another week, and hope that they can kind of wait
One
out that.
optimistic factor is
Yeah,
this is similar to Cantwell, right?
right.
I mean, Georgia got the last visit with Cantwell, and it
Yep.
didn't matter at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And Jackson Canwell and Brett Kolage really bonded on this official visit. Their families bonded. They spent a ton of time together. And again, Brett Kolage gave an awesome quote this morning that he was saying that me and Jackson blocking three texts together is going to be dangerous. Like, I think he's on board with it. I think he's kind of rounding out the final phase of his process, but this is approaching again the finish line, and I think
Yeah.
Miami's neck and neck with the Dogs. Let's see if they can pull off. If they win two offensive line recruiting battles against Georgia this cycle,
Yeah.
that would be an extremely, extremely encouraging sign about where things are. Just in the national landscape of offensive line recruiting in Miami, the way
Trajectory of the
yeah,
program.
exactly, all of
Yeah.
those things. And again, I think that's very much on the table because Brett Coolidge is a top offensive line target for Georgia. He's a top offensive line target for Miami. Pretty sure he's going to one of those two schools. We'll find out soon which one it is. But again, I think that there is a run of, I think Miami is the school that's perhaps trending or maybe just has the momentum heading into that final visit. Let's see if they can hang on.
Let's stay with good vibes on the offensive line. Let's go to Candon Picket,
Yeah.
guy with Miami ties in terms of family, three-star offensive lineman out of Tampa Bay Tech, 87 grade. Visited Clemson last week. Expected to visit Florida here coming up. Where do you think stand with Miami and Candon Picket right now?
Another one I feel really good about Miami and Candon Picket at this point, and I think that this was always the way that this was trending. My crystal ball went in on Miami for Candon Picket back in September 2024, so this was like in the fall months, early game day, like an early game day last year. Just felt like again Miami legacy prospect from the dad. His brother plays on the team. Kind of hard to envision him seeing go elsewhere. Felt that way then. Felt that way now. Felt that way now. So yeah, I think that this is very much trending towards Candon Pickett and Miami kind of formally coming together at this point. He went to go see Clemson officially last weekend at Miami this weekend. I'm not sure if he gets to that Florida visit this coming weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if Candon Pickett was on board sooner rather than later.
Okay. Uh, let's group these three defensive linemen together. Three-star D lineman that visited as well, Kosi Opala. He's the pass rusher from Houston, 6'2", 230. Three-star D lineman Freddie Wilson from Spruce Creek High School in Port Orange. And three-star defensive lineman Tyson Bacon, 6'3", 270 out of Hoover, Alabama. Run through those three real quick. Tell us what we need to know.
Yeah, Cozy Akpala leaning Texas. I think that was the vibes coming in. Still feel like that's probably where it's trending. If Texas wants him, I think that's where he's going. Tyson Bacon is one I think Miami's in a really good position for. And said on the preview, it seems like this is a Miami Florida battle. I do think that that's still the case, and I think Miami could realistically come out on top of that. I think this is an interior defensive lineman that they value. And, I think they are in position to potentially get a guy like Dyson Bacon. So I think that's maybe a name to watch out for, this summer as Miami kind of starts putting together its class. Freddie Wilson is another one. We talk about him being maybe a more like a depth rotational guy. You need those types of guys on the roster. And I think Freddie Wilson sees that Miami's been on from the beginning. Miami was his first Power Four offer. They're at the point now where they take that official visit. So Miami's kind of been coast to coast for Freddie Wilson, a school that's been at the forefront of his process. So he said he kind of understands, he kind of knows what he wants to do at this point. Miami's at the top of his list, and he's still exploring options at Minnesota, Georgia Tech, and Houston. So and I think he added UCF too. So a couple other schools he's going to explore, a couple other options, but again, I can definitely see a path to Freddie Wilson being in Miami's class at the end of the day. So we'll see if that's kind of where things continue to go as he explores the rest of his options.
So I did this to you last week. If I
Yeah,
set the over under, so because there's, I think, what is it, 11
11
un,
uncommitted.
uncommitted. Let's go 3.5 over under from that group, the
Ooh.
uncommitted group, committing to Miami. Whoever it is, where would you go? Over or under? Three
I
or
would go.
four?
I would go at least four. I feel good about Miami adding a few guys from this official visit weekend. I think it could very realistically be four. Could be four. I think it could realistically, blow that away. If it was
Okay.
under, I'd be pretty surprised. I think that this was
Okay.
a good group. Miami felt really good about kind of just like the vibes of the weekend. They felt like this was a good active weekend with some commits here, and I think that there could be some good results at the end of the day. I know everyone wants to see the results now, but I
Right.
think that
It
this
takes
is
time.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think this is a different. I think this is just different recruiting. I think it's changed. It's changing year over year, but I think
Yeah.
especially this cycle, it's just different. Everywhere. I think it's different. A
Yeah.
couple guys you'll see them committing here or there. Miami will get their sprinkles too, but I think a lot of these guys are going to take their trips and
Yeah.
make decisions after that. So I think July, as it typically has been, right? I think in the
Yeah.
moment you want to see it, but I think July and as things kind of slow down here, and even at the back end of June, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a run. So it's coming from Miami. They've done a good job of with these official visits, and I think they feel like these weekends have been executed well. And at the end of the day, I think we will see the results from.
Let's wrap things up. Just Legends Camp, we got to address it.
Yeah,
That's Miami's. It's the cool camp of the summer because, look, I think it's fair to say summer camps in general across the country are taking a hit because the summer months are now devoted so much to official visit season, and so that means a lot of the rising senior class isn't going to camp because they're
right.
out taking official visits. And, as a result, a lot of programs are focusing on winning those official visit
Yeah,
weekends or trips or whatever. And so, camps in general across the country are about identifying or evaluating younger prospects. And so, that's certainly what Legends Camp is about nowadays. But to me, what's cool about Legends Camp is that so many great Miami Hurricanes take the time to come back to UM for this one camp every summer. And it's, at the end of the day, it's a celebration of, what the Miami Hurricanes football program is and the greatness that they have achieved over the years. And you have, alums from Michael Irvin to, Cam Kitchens out there showing love to the program. Michael Irvin gives a passionate speech before the camp. They all say a little something. They introduce themselves to the campers, and then Michael Irvin wraps it up, and he gives a passionate speech just about how Green Tree made him as a player, and he worked hard, and that's where kind of his uh, hard work mentality, his work ethic, kind of began in a lot of ways. So he was out there giving that speech, and then also just he was coaching hard out there too,
he was
as a
coaching very
coach.
hard. That's
He
where I was
was,
going with it. Michael Irvin was all in.
which is good.
Michael Irvin was at 1,000 today at
Yes.
coaching the receivers at Legends Camp. It was actually awesome. It was really
Yes.
cool. Standing
It's
very
great.
close to him.
And this is what makes Miami as a program different from a lot of programs out there. Because look, there's a lot of good college football programs that have a lot of great alums that went on to be NFL players too. Miami's one of the few programs I don't want to say they're the only program, but they might be the only program that really just their alums, their great players embrace coming back and giving back to the program, selflessly in a lot of ways. So I think that's something that should be celebrated. So that's something I just wanted to get out on the front end. In terms of just prospects out there, Gabby, to me, like two guys popped. Logan Flaherty, quarterback, 2027 quarterback out of Port Charlotte, had an accurate day. Is he good enough to be the number one quarterback target? That's for them to decide and all that. But he had a good day throwing the football. And then probably the guy that impressed me the most in terms of like, okay, he can be a legitimate Miami Hurricane football player is the tight end, Trey Proctor. I thought he moved well. He's got a frame that still is going to fill out. He's a 2027 recruit as well. I don't know if there's anyone else to touch on that I'm missing here.
Yeah, I think two guys. You mentioned two offensive guys. I'll go two defensive guys. Miami offered a 2026. I guess we'll categorize him as an athlete for the sake of the podcast, but he's a Notre Dame wide receiver commit, Dylan Faison. He's the younger brother of Notre Dame wide receiver and lacrosse star Jordan Faison. So he is listed as a wide receiver at Boca Raton St. Andrews. He's apparently also the number one ranked lacrosse player in like the
Yeah.
country this cycle, which I didn't. I mean, it's crazy, but he's committed to Notre Dame for both lacrosse and football. Miami, of course, doesn't have a lacrosse program, so I don't really know where all this stuff stacks or where this
Yeah.
eventually goes. But again, listed as a wide receiver, he camped at cornerback. Miami had staff that was telling him like, we need to see you at cornerback, so he flipped on the other side. You could tell he hasn't played a ton of it or, isn't super technically sound, but he is a long athlete who can move. He had an interception. He broke up a pass. He kind of figured it out. And I think that that's a testament to his athleticism and just type of player that he is. And his brother is a guy he's from the Palm Beach area too, went to Notre Dame. That's kind of a low key recruit. And he ended up, doing just fine. And he's been productive as a football player. And of course, helped Notre Dame's lacrosse team win a national championship last year. So, again, just an impressive athlete. You see a lot of that stuff with Dylan Faison too. So maybe want to track as depending on where things go from there. But he's been locked in with the Irish for quite some time. Another 2027 prospect I want to highlight is Jalen Jones, defensive
Yeah.
back. He's at
good.
MacArthur now. I think he played his sophomore season at Western, transferred over to MacArthur now. I think he's a good player. He's
Mhm.
long. He can move. He's good in coverage. I like the way that he just kind of breaks on
He's kind of
balls and
smart too.
yeah,
Like you can tell he's a smart player.
yeah. I feel like I feel like you kind of saw him playing a little bit of that game of just like kind of making it seem like there's more cushion than there is, and he kind of just
Yeah.
breaks. And the way he kind of anticipates that and makes plays on the ball, it's just aggressive, but kind of just like clean with it. I thought I was impressed by him. I've seen him around a lot. He was around a ton in the spring. I've never really watched him play a ton, but he's an impressive and pretty fluid athlete that probably has some corner safety flexibility. I'm not exactly sure what he is. Maybe he is a corner. I think we have him listed as a safety. It seems like he can run and he can kind of stick guys. So regardless, he's a good local South Florida player that I think Miami has made a lot of. Just Miami's been really, really active with. So potentially someone who could be a part of what should be another strong class in 2027.
Great stuff. We'll wrap it up there. Appreciate everyone for listening. Go support our sponsors. Go check out the annual subscription sale. If you guys are so inclined, $43 for an annual VIP subscription to Inside the U. Thank you for everyone for listening. And until next time, take care.